going to pull you back together, and I'm going to give you something to discuss. I want to also kind of keep in mind that our purpose here is to talk about passion, purpose, and perseverance. I want to share with you the Torrance Manifesto, or a guide for developing a creative career. This was published around the year 2000, or shortly after. It is the result of essentially Paul Torrance's life's work. Back in the 1960s, he identified a group of highly creative kids using the Torrance test of creative thinking, which we talked a little bit about yesterday. As a part of that, he then had this group of several hundred individuals that had essentially scored the highest level on the Torrance test of creative thinking, and he followed them over the course of their lifetime for about 40 years. Near the end of his life, this was kind of the summation of that longitudinal study, he had contacted them when they were essentially in their 50s or 60s at that point. So they had become successful in their own right. They had these successful careers. Many of them had achieved a level of eminence. And he and his fellow researchers asked this group of highly creative, eminent individuals, what were the things that made the difference in their lives? And so as they went through all of the hundreds of different responses, they distilled them down into these 7 pieces. And so what I want you to do is to begin to look over these 7 items and talk at your table about your thoughts and feelings about these 7 items, and also how they connect to our theme of passion, perseverance, and purpose. Thank you. Passion, purpose, and perseverance. So we'll take a couple of minutes to do that. So tell me what you're thinking and feeling about the Torrance Manifesto and how it might connect to our passion, purpose, and perseverance theme. Not everybody at the same time. Oh, sorry.
I found number 5 about don't waste energy trying to be well-rounded to be liberating. And perhaps that's like kind of in reaction to our discussion yesterday, kind of like permission to not feel pressure to be everything to everyone all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that translates to passion and purpose, because when you're purposeful, you're not kind of doing scattershot, you are sharpshooting.
Yeah.
And that felt like, oh, thank you, Ms. Torrance.
Yeah, it is kind of a liberating experience to go, hey, I do not have to be good at everything. And so that's, I mean, for me, when I saw this back in 2000, I was like, okay, I can do that. Yeah, what else?
A little bit the 6, do what you love and can do well. I love and can do well, because those are not necessarily the same thing. You know, we have a lot of kids who are, I'm thinking particularly, who are really good at a particular sport, and so they're pushed to do it and do it very single-mindedly, but they hate it, and it, you know, has a lot of negative effects in their life. So that is, you know, it'd be nice if those things always align, but they don't.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, ideally what we're looking for is that alignment. Just like yesterday we saw with the do what you're good at and what you love, like those two circles. I forget exactly what were in those 2 circles, but it's essentially the same thing. We're looking for that kind of combination of those things to come together, and oftentimes they don't. And I think that Torrance would suggest, or the Torrance kids would suggest, that we need to try and find that alignment as much as we possibly can.
I'm going to number 1, but I'm kind of questioning, like, if you're not, you know, you might find something throughout, these people were older, but throughout your life that you've never tried before, that you end up loving and doing well. Like, I think it's okay to, you know, sometimes try new, you know, thinking of being well-rounded, trying new things, having new experiences.
No, I totally agree with that as well.
But maybe because they're
they've already achieved this level of success and become very specialized in what it is that they're doing. And so, right, it took that lifetime to get there. And so they were really thinking of it, at least this is the way that I kind of interpret it. They were thinking of it as, gosh, I'm really near the end or kind of like post-prime of my career. And I really wish that I had more time just to focus on the things that I really wanted to focus on. And so as I read that, don't waste time trying to be well-rounded, I see that piece as I wish that I had more time to do these things in my career. I wasted all this other time when I was younger trying to do all of these other things that people were telling me that I should be doing rather than what I really wanted to be doing. And so at least that's kind of my interpretation of it. This came out, and I first learned about it. I was at a gifted conference, at the Georgia Gifted Conference, and I got to see Dr. Torrance talk about this. And it totally blew me away because I was like, oh, this is like the document that I've been waiting for. It's like the secret, it's like the secret text to a great life. And so I was a teacher of the gifted at that point in time. I taught at the elementary level. And what I did was to create a poster version of this, and I just kind of hung it up in my classroom at the beginning of that year. And like we talked about it as to my 4th and 5th graders. And we kind of presented these things, and it was just kind of a nice kind of casual conversation. And they were like, they're like, oh yeah, I can totally see, some things that were on there. And we then left it alone and just kind of stuck it on the wall and left it there. And then some things started happening. There was one day where I had this pretty emotional student that was having like one of her breakdowns. And I was like, okay, I gotta deal with this. Let's get the other students doing something. And then I was like, okay, just go and sit, and I'll be with you in a couple minutes. And so she went and she sat down, and the poster happened to be just hanging right there. And she was calming down, and she was kind of looking at it, and she was reading. And then by the time that I got over to sit with her, and she was like, number 3. I was like, what are you talking about, number 3? And she's like, learn to free yourself from the expectations of others and to walk away from the games they impose on you. I need to free myself to play my own game. I was like, you're 10. And you just discovered the secret to life. And I was like, yeah, number 3. That's what it's all about. She's like, are you okay? And she's like, yeah, I'm okay. And we just went on with that. And so every time there was another, kind of emotional breakdown with other kids, I was like, hey, did you look at the Torrance list? What do you think here? And almost always it was number 3. Because there's so many games that other people try and impose on us. And we have to figure out what it is that we really want to be as a part of that. What it is that we want to be able to do with our lives. Because it really is about finding our purpose and prioritizing it. Probably one of the most influential books for me over the course of the past year and a half or so has been Essentialism, that's written by Greg McKeown. He talks a lot in this book about the importance of creating priorities. And there are a number of just great graphics and sort of illustrations within this book of advice. And the subtitle of this is The Disciplined Pursuit of Less. And I really felt like that in my own life that I was out of control. I was piling all of these things on my plate, and I was simply just saying yes to everything because I felt like that I had to. And as I was reading the book, I came across this graphic. I created a slide version of it, but essentially it had these 2 energy balls that were down there, and he was writing about how the amount of energy that we have as an individual human being is finite. We're not going to get any more of that energy, but we have to think about how we're going to use that energy. Now, for most of us that are constantly saying yes to everything, we then spend our energy like this. It goes out in 1,000 different directions, but only about this far. When we find our purpose, when we pursue less, when we see the things and we pursue the things that we really are interested in and that we really want to do, we can use that same amount of energy to go so much further. And when I saw that in the book, I stared at it for 5 minutes. And I was like, wow. I'm doing the thing on the left, and that's not where I need to be right now. If I really want to make a difference, then I need to be as focused as possible. In our conversations, both yesterday and today, I've heard, some people really kind of talking about that laser focus or kind of gaining that insight and seeing where it is that they want to direct their attention. He talks about the difference between being an essentialist and being a non-essentialist. A non-essentialist is what we don't want to be, in his opinion. He says that a non-essentialist thinks that almost everything is essential. We want to be more like an essentialist, where we think that almost everything is non-essential. So what are the things that are non-essential in our lives? He would argue pretty much everything, except for those few core things that we really value. He then breaks this down into kind of looking at the two different categories and ways that we think, do, and feel. So the non-essentialist tries to be all things to all people. A lot of you were struggling with that yesterday when we were looking at the imposter syndrome. The essentialist tries to do less, but do it better. And a non-essentialist thinks that, and uses phrases like, I have to, it's all important, and how can I fit all of this in? Where the essentialists would think and say things like, I choose to do that. Or only a few things really matter. And asking questions like, what are the trade-offs? If I do all of these other things that are not essential, what is it that I'm giving up? What is it that is going to be the cost for me? And is it really going to cost me something that I really want to do or that I really view as an essential piece? The non-essentialist does the undisciplined pursuit of more. You're all over everywhere, just going after more and more and more and more. It's like you're in one of those money cages, and there's cash flowing around everywhere, and you're just trying to take it all in as much as possible. The essentialist is very deliberate in this. It's the disciplined pursuit of less. The non-essentialist would react to what's most pressing, say yes to people without really thinking about it, and try to force execution at the last moment. Oh, this is due right now. I got to rush really to pull all these things together because I'm on a timeline. The essentialist would pause to discern what really matters. They say no to everything except the essential, and they remove obstacles to make execution easy. Finally, this is what the non-essentialist and essentialist get. The non-essentialist lives a life that does not satisfy. We eat all of this junk food, yet we never feel full. You take on too much and your work suffers. You feel out of control. The non-essentialist is unsure of whether the right things are getting done and feels overwhelmed and exhausted. While an essentialist is going to be living a life that really matters, that they're going to choose carefully in order to do great work. They're going to feel in control. They're going to get the right things done, and they will experience joy in the journey. It's a lot to think about. I want you to take a moment and unpack some of that at your table, and we'll come back together in just 1 minute. One of the sort of essential pieces of advice from essentialism is this. He writes that if it isn't a clear yes, then it's a clear no. He says if you are feeling 95% it's a yes, it's no, you really want it to be 100% yes. Again, that also comes from a place of privilege, and it also comes from knowing your environment, and it comes from having the ability to say yes. There are some things that you have to say yes to even when you do not want to. But you eventually want to get to a point where you are in charge of your own plate, that you are putting the things on your plate. And I think that that really comes down to what is it that you want to be known for. We were talking yesterday about legacy. What is the legacy that you are leaving behind? And I've been thinking kind of a lot about that as I have, entered into the middle age category, and thinking about what is it that I want to be known for, and what is it that I want to leave behind? What is it that I want to spend the rest of my life doing? And those are the things that I really need to try and focus on. Along these same lines of having those clear no's is the classic piece of advice from Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett said that the difference between successful people and very successful people is that very successful people say no to almost everything. They only focus on those very few things that they want to spend their time on. And that's the difference between being a very successful person. I want us to talk about and begin to think about our wants and needs. We've already sort of alluded to that in some of our discussion around essentialism. And I want you to take a few moments, and I just want you to kind of start creating a list of some things that you feel like that you really want to do in your life, maybe your personal life, not necessarily your professional life. And then what are some things that you feel like that you really need to do, also in personal and professional life? So just kind of create a list of items that are the things that you want to do versus the things that you feel like that you have to do or that you need to do or that you're required to do. All right. Now that you have a list of things that you have identified as wants and needs, we're going to use this decision matrix to begin to try and classify some of those things. Thinking again where it is that we're spending our time and how we can redefine our own plate. And so let me just kind of describe generally what this looks like. So we have, so across the bottom we have things that you need to do or that you're required to do. Like, do you need to do it or are required to do it? No versus yes. And then on the vertical piece we have things that you want to do, like no, I do not want to do this versus yes, I want to do that. So I want you to either individually or with a partner at your table, look at the things that are on your wants and needs list and then figure out where it is that those would be categorized. Are they things that you maybe need to prioritize? Or if it's a yes thing, like you want to do it and you need to do it, then that's something you should definitely pursue. Versus something that you don't really want to do, but you need to do it or are required to do it. That would be something like, I just need to recognize that this is something that I have to do. Let's just do it. Versus things that you neither want to do nor need to do, we should just not do them at all. Let's talk about this. Thoughts, reactions, feelings. Was this a useful process for you? What did that look like in your discussions? I know what it sounded like. I love you all as a group because you were so like energetic until it comes time for like the big group share, and you just it's like, oh no, I'm comfortable with my home planet circle, but I am not comfortable with the solar system that's happening here. I mean, this is obviously a very simplistic, two-dimensional kind of view of the world. I tried to kind of pull apart that need versus by also referring it to as things that you have to do or things that you're required to do. But I really like the distinction that you're talking about between these are the things that I want to do or the things that I'm choosing to do. That might be perhaps a more useful way even to kind of think about this two-dimensional dynamic. This is also really very closely related to this idea that was put out by Dwight D. Eisenhower. He said that was talking about the difference between what is unimportant, or what is important and what is urgent. He says what is important is seldom urgent, and what is urgent is seldom important. And so there's the Eisenhower decision matrix, which is kind of the same thing, but looking at it from a slightly different lens. So we're going to compare things that are important versus not important, things that are urgent versus not urgent. If something is important and urgent, we're going to do those things first. If it is something that is important, but it can wait, we're going to schedule that. We're going to put that off later at the end of the day, like checking our email. It is perhaps important, but we do not need to check it every 5 minutes, nor do we need to respond to that every minute of every day. The non-important piece that are urgent, is there some way that we could give that task to someone else to do it for us? It's something that has to be done. It needs to be done in a timely fashion. Are we the person who has to do it? In many instances, maybe there's somebody else that's there. Other instances, no, we're the person who absolutely has to do it. If it is not important and not urgent, is there a way that we can just not do it at all and just totally avoid that? Another way to kind of think about that would be urgent and important would be things that you want to do today or as quickly as possible, versus things that are important but not urgent. You maybe just find some time to do it in the next couple of days over the course of a week. If it is not important and urgent, is there somebody that you can ask for help? Say, can you help me do this? I need some assistance on this piece. Versus that not important, not urgent would be something that you just try not to do. Because the truth of the matter is, you can't do it all. And that's an important realization, I think, for us to come to when we're talking about purpose. We also have to kind of think about how big our plate is and look for those things that we are able to take off of our plate. As teachers, we not only wear multiple hats oftentimes within our roles, but we have multiple plates to go along with each of those multiple hats, where we are just juggling or kind of spinning plates on sticks. And it's exhausting. Another strategy that I've seen talked about in this kind of wants versus needs, what's important versus what's urgent, is called the Moscow method. This was developed by this group that develops computer software. When a lot of times when computer software or apps are being developed, they're on a very tight timeline as to kind of the release date or when that is that they need to push product out. And so this group developed what they call the Moscow method, which stands for must, should, could, and would like to. We are often working against those time deadlines, those constraints of this needs to be done by the end of the day. As we're facing those challenges, what are the things that must be done as a part of that? Versus what are some of the things that should be done? It would be nice if we included them, but they are not necessarily essential. Versus what are the things that we could do? And for those of us that were looking at the imposter syndrome yesterday, one of the categories was talking about how we were looking at, you can't start the project because you see all of the possibilities that are out there. And we need to recognize those and kind of start to see the things that we could do in that situation versus the things that we would like to do. Another strategy that I've learned about over the course of the time that I've been really thinking about passion, purpose, and perseverance are all about vampires. Yeah. So this idea came from one of Austin Kleon's books. I forget which one of the three it was. It's Austin spelled the regular way, Kleon, K-L-E-O-N. And he does this fantastic job of like distilling down creativity theory and talking. He's also an artist, so he talks about how he has incorporated all of these theories of creativity into his own artwork, and he just writes these amazingly beautiful and thoughtful short books about his process. And in one of the books, he talks about identifying the vampires in your life. Now, when he's talking about vampires, and I'm talking about vampires here, we're not talking about the sexy kind of vampires, although that would be really important to identify the sexy kind of vampires. But think about the people and things that are in your life that just suck you dry. Now, we probably all have vampires in our life. Like, you know exactly who it is and what it is that just sucks you dry. He says that it's important for us to identify them so that we can stay away from them, like we would stay away from the undead. So that we are going to identify them, and we're going to build up our defense against the dark arts and say, vampires, you are going to stay away from me. I'm not going to participate in your games. Because it's so easy to get sucked down into that. When I was a teacher, vampires tended to lurk around in the teacher's lounge. Like, you would just walk into that, and it was like, I just walked into, like, the underground crypt, because there they all are, and they're all like, just, oh, well, let me tell you about this thing and then this other thing, and it was just like, you left just feeling emotionally and physically drained by that whole situation. Austin Kleon says, don't engage with them. Just try and stay as far away from them as you possibly can. Another great piece of advice is to make a not to-do list. This one also is incredibly liberating. So I am a big list maker. I make lots of lists all the time. I make lists. I make a list to make a list. That's how meta it gets. It's kind of crazy. And so I heard this piece of advice, make a not to-do list. Like, what are the things that you are not going to do? What are the things that you're not going to do today? What are the things that you're not going to do this week? Or maybe what are the things that you're not going to do this school year? And write it down on your list. And then when you don't do it at the end of that time frame, you get to cross it off. And that's a really, really good feeling. I watch a lot of television. We're in like the golden age of television right now, just with Netflix and Hulu and like all of the subscription services that are out there. And I love to just consume massive amounts of content in a short amount of time. And so one of my favorite shows right now is Stranger Things, the Netflix series. I love absolutely everything about that show. And so early on, like after season 1, I was reading this interview with the Duffer Brothers, who are the creators of the show. And they said that before they pitched their idea to Netflix, and as they were writing the script and creating the world, they created a whole list of rules to govern what it was that they were not going to do, even before they like started sharing and writing the scripts. And they said, if we ever do one of these things, we're done. The show is over. It is on our not to do list. They're like, well, when the show's over, we will share the list. I really want to see what's on the list to know whether they got close to do any of those things. We're getting dangerously close to lunch, so I want to try and finish up with a couple of ideas here, and we're going to use what's in your name tent for this next activity. So there's a list there of the instructions for the WHOOP activity. And for the WHOOP activity, this is, it's fun to say, whoop, whoop. I also think of like that tag team rap song from like the 90s, like whoop, there it is. So I love this as a planning or goal setting strategy for so many reasons. I see this as a way that we can really begin to kind of create this roadmap to our success. Unlike pretty much every other activity that we've done together here, I'm not going to ask you to share this. So this is just for you. This is just for you. So there's four steps. We'll go through each one of these steps. I want you to kind of jot down the course of a minute in each step what you're thinking, feeling as we go through this. So when we are thinking about whoop, we're looking at 4 different ways to approach a situation. The W in whoop stands for wish. I want you to think of a wish that you have for yourself. Now, this could be a personal or a professional wish, be something that you would like to accomplish sometime in the future. So what is your wish? What is it that you want to accomplish? And as you're doing that, think about how a wish feels different than a goal. Item 2 in the WOOP framework is outcome. What is the best outcome for your wish? If your wish is fulfilled, where would that leave you? Next come the obstacles. Whenever you have a wish or you're trying to accomplish something new, something bold, something different, you're always going to have obstacles. Think about those obstacles and list them. These obstacles can be internal or they can be external. The final step of the WOOP process is plan. When those obstacles occur, or if those obstacles occur, then what will be your action or thought? So that's WOOP. Wish, outcome, obstacles, and plan. I sort of think of it as a wish being what is the biggest thing that I can imagine. It's something that's beyond just like I'm going to set another goal. Like a goal seems very like, I don't know, daily oriented or sort of weekly oriented, where a wish is something that's very big. I mean, Aladdin doesn't find like the genie's lamp and the genie pops out and says, I'm going to give you 3 goals. What are your 3 goals? It's like, what are your 3 wishes? And so there's almost like a magical kind of piece about it. That's probably because I've been far too Disneyfied to think straight. We're going to close out this whole wishing, goal setting, purpose part of our program for today with one final thing that I will post on our companion website, and this idea came from a book entitled "Think It Forward," which is written by Beth Comstock. Subtitle of that is "Courage, Creativity, and the Power of Change." Prior to reading this book, I'd never heard of Beth Comstock, and then after reading this book, I kind of felt like, how does everyone not know who Beth Comstock is? So she's been a creative executive for General Electric, NBC. She was kind of one of the initial creative teams that started Hulu. She's worked for Nike and a variety of other corporations over the course of her career. In her book, Imagine It Forward, she says that if we want to remain relevant and succeed, that we have to be able to imagine it forward. She says that we're living in a time and an age where we can no longer afford to fail to imagine. And as part of this, she says that we make all of these excuses about the reasons why we can't do things, or that we can't have imagination, or that we can't have our wishes come true. And she says we need to stop waiting for other people to give us permission to do that. And so we need to write our own permission slip. Because nobody else is going to give the permission to us. We have to give that to ourselves. And so so I would challenge you, and even challenge your students, to look for ways that, what are the things that you've always wanted to do, but you never felt like you had time to do? Write it out on a permission slip. Sign your name. You don't even have to forge your signature, because you are the one who is in charge of that. Unless you just feel like you really want to forge your signature, and then that's a whole different story. So she has like this kind of generic permission slip, but then she has like a longer, more formal one. Again, that I will post on our companion website. I filled this out for myself because I think that this was an important piece of information for me as well. So I'm going to read through this. I want to share it with you, and this will take us into lunch. Please excuse Brian from the way that things have always been done. Time's up on standard operating procedures. Brian admits that he doesn't have the answers. So please excuse Brian from the expectations that he has any of it figured out. He doesn't. The solution is out there, but only if you prevent Brian to try and probably fail and then to keep trying. This process won't be neat. Instead, it will be scary. It is. And messy. It most definitely is. And, well, weird. Yes. But that will be courageous and awesome and the start of change. And then you get to sign your name. It's a pretty powerful experience. The last piece on your name tent that I printed up for you guys yesterday has a very small circle. This is a place where you can give yourself permission. My wife and I often joke about getting around to it. And so one day early in our marriage, she gave me this piece of paper that she had cut into a circle and wrote "to it" inside of the circle. And she's like, "Today's your lucky day. You now have a round to it." And we have passed that piece of paper back and forth for over a decade now. So today you get your round to it. Think about things that you've always wanted to do but that you were afraid to try. Today I want you to look for ways that you can give yourself permission to try something new, something bold, something different.